Uh-huh. See? See? It's a good thing that I waited longer than necessary to make this video on the end of Attack on Titan! Orieto Soria Jäger, ha, 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 ha. Okay, so the ending of Attack on Titan occurred, but we had not just one ending, no, we got two endings, okay? We got a standard ending that was sort of like the good ending in a video game, and then we had some extra chapters that were added on recently in the last week, that were sort of more of the bad ending in a video game. So I don't know if that was just Isayama being like, hey, look, if you guys want the good, happy ending, or as happy as this ending could possibly be, here you go. But if you want the one that's maybe a little bit more realistic, yeah, here you go too. And so that created a lot of contention. Not just from the fact that, like, they didn't like the endings, but I think a lot of people were upset with the fact of, like, the ending changed. Because adding those few pages, there was really not a lot of dialogue. Actually, I don't think there was any dialogue, really, in the added pages. But what happened was it completely changed the tone, and I think that's what people were kind of upset with. So, the last chapter of Attack on Titan, chapter 139, it addresses a few things I was curious about, and it doesn't address a few things. One thing I didn't even realize, because, like, I was never really that interested in this, who Historia's, like, husband, like, who was the father of Historia's baby. That was, like, a point that I'm like, okay, yeah, we're probably going to find that out, but I was never, like, super invested in that little soap opera plotline or whatever. And I didn't even realize it the first few times reading the chapter, because I didn't even really care. But, you know, the last time I read it for this video as, like, a refresher, I'm like, oh, wait, holy crap, we never found out who the father of Historia's baby was, did we? I mean, it's probably Eren, at least that's the most, like, logical explanation that it was Eren. I guess it could have been somebody else, but, whatever. Like I said, I don't particularly care there. One thing that I did care about that we did touch upon here is the nature of the Attack Titan itself and the ability to see kind of into the future and into, like, the different, perspectives of the users of the Attack Titan, both past, present, and future. One thing I was kind of curious about, like, okay, so was Eren, ever since, like, he received the power, under the influence of his future self? Like, how far back does this go? How far back was this, like, manipulation going on? And even, even before he got the Titan powers, he should still maybe be able to be influenced because it's still him that had it. So I was a little confused about how all that stuff went down. And in the last chapter, when Armin and Eren are kind of having that conversation in that little inner world, in, like, that dream state there, before the final battle and everything, it's kind of explained by Eren that because of that ability to see into the future and into the past and through all these different perspectives and different timelines and all that stuff, it's kind of messed up my own cognition. Like, I don't think I'm able to think straight with the power of the Attack Titan the way it was all set up. And so that's sort of an explanation on everything that happened. It's not really like a cop-out. I mean, kind of is. It's kind of like saying, like, yeah, my mind was so, bogged down and so mired with all these different perspectives and timelines and stuff that, I couldn't think straight myself. Like, I didn't even know if it was my thoughts that I was having and my decisions that I was making, or is a decision of something else that happened at some other point in time, because they're all connected through the Attack Titan. I didn't really know what happened, but it happened, okay? So, I mean, like, yeah, I guess it's kind of saying that, like, Eren didn't really want to do this, but he ended up doing it anyway, because that was the nature of the Attack Titan. He comes to the realization that this is really dark. He comes to the realization that it was him that sent the Smiling Titan to devour his mother way back at the beginning of the story, where his mom, Carla, was, like, underneath the rubble and the Smiling Titan comes out and that was apparently Eren himself that even sent a Titan to kill his own mother, because that was what the future was supposed to be. Like, the future dictates, your mother must die, and so Eren, in, like, a subconscious mire, like, had it, be that way. And so that's messed up, and so Eren apologizes to Armin for everything that he's done. He hasn't been a great friend in the last story arc or so. Also the fact he wiped out 80% of the human race. That's also kind of a significant factor. We'll get back to that. But no, he apologizes to Armin, and Armin's like, you know, Mikasa should be the person you're really apologizing to, not me. You know, you really hurt her with those things that you said, you know, how she's just an Ackerman, so, you know, she doesn't really love you. It's just like the drive of the Ackerman to defend the person that she cares about. It's like it's not something that's genuine. It's just something else. You know, Eren really hurt Mikasa, right? And so that's what basically Armin was talking about there. Eren eventually does kind of break down and is just like, yeah, I did want to be with Mikasa this whole time, but, you know, what am I supposed to do here? And he starts kind of breaking down like that, and Armin's like, oh, wow, okay, well, there you go. So that this entire story, if you're waiting for the moment for it to just come out and say it, like, yeah, like, Mikasa obviously wanted to be with Eren, but if you just wanted Eren to come out, it's like, yeah, I just wanted to be with Mikasa this whole time, man. That was what this was all about. I just wanted that. And Armin's like, okay, geez, well, all right, well, there it is. And Eren's like, yeah, please don't tell her I said all that. And Armin's like, okay. And by the way, yeah, this whole conversation with them in the dream world, it's actually a really cool aesthetic because they teleport kind of through the different points in their life, you know, when they were kids, and then during the pre-time skip, and then post-time skip, and they walk alongside like a volcanic stream of magma, and then they're in the Arctic with like the Aurora Borealis over them. So it's a really interesting aesthetic, as like they're just walking through time and places and dimensions and whatever, all having this conversation about, what was it all about, man? What was the whole point of this? Like, why? Why did this all have to go down, right? And Eren talks a little bit about Ymir. Talks about, like, how come Ymir did all this stuff? How come Ymir was devoutly loyal to King Fritz up until the end, even though, you know, she started out as a slave, and then Fritz, you know, Fritz pretty much always viewed her as a slave, and just a purpose of, like, having children that would have this power and everything like that. But Eren hyposits, like, at the end, and only Ymir herself would really know this, but it seemed like Ymir, despite all of that, despite everything that Fritz did to her, she still loved him, and so that's why her spirit kind of lingers on, you know, keeping the royal family active. That can also explain why she patched up Zeke in the realm after, you know, he got blown up by Levi and the Thunder Spear and everything. Like, she's devoutly loyal to the royal family, tethered throughout the centuries, even though King Fritz is long dead, and even though he treated her horribly, didn't even really probably view her as a human being, just as an instrument of gaining more power, as, you know, because he was the king, right, and everything. But despite all that, Ymir still loved him, and so it was the curse of that love that really kind of brought the Titans into existence, in this curse that has persisted for thousands of years, right? And so that's the best kind of thing that we get. I'll be straight up, even after rereading this chapter quite a bit, there was a lot of moments where I'm kind of like confused myself, like, okay, so I'm just going with my own interpretation here. If you have another interpretation where it's like, actually, I think what he meant was this rather than this, that's fine too. I feel like Isayama might have kept it deliberately, like maybe a little bit open-ended. There's a few things he kind of comes out and says, like, the Titan power just goes away. The Titan power vanishes, so that curse is kind of lifted from the Eldians. There's a moment where the Marleyans and the Eldians are kind of up at, you know, each other's throats, and the Marleyans are like, you know, you're the Eldians, and the Eldians like, we don't have Titan power anymore. It's like, can you prove it? And then so Armin steps up, and Armin's like, I'm the one that slayed Eren Yeager. I'm the one that slayed the Attack Titan, you know. And so it's kind of implied there that, like, okay, yeah, the Marleyans and the Eldians, they work together there at that moment, and so they don't just outright slaughter each other. However, even in the good ending, the quote-unquote good ending of the manga, there's still a very ominous feel by the end, where you're on Paradis Island, and you have Historia there, who's the queen. This is 3 years later, so her child is 3 years old, and celebrating her birthday and everything, and it seems all happy and good, but then you see, like, the army that's now becoming militarized, and with all the technological advancements on Paradis now that it's open up to the world, you see an entire army of, like I guess the upgraded form of the Scout Regiment, probably not called the Scout Regiment anymore, but like the, I don't know, the Greater Paradis Military, or whatever it would be called. They got more modern battle armor, and they got rifles, and they're ready to go, and the mantra kind of spoken about, like, the Jaegerists still live on in Paradis. That's like a very prominent faction, and they're like, you know, if we win, we get to live. If we lose, we die, you know? So it's kind of like, you know, it's like we're marching off to war, or if anybody tries to start anything, we will go to war, you know? That's that kind of thing. So even in this good ending that we get, don't think of it like, oh yeah, everything's good now, because like how it was all set up is just like, yeah, even if you do kill Eren and if you end the rumbling and the world is spared, you know, that might only buy you a little bit of peace. You know, the world is racked. 80% of humanity was wiped out. I don't know if we ever got a number of how many people lived on the planet, but, you know, the state of the world in Attack on Titan, with the technology that Marley has and everything, it looks like comparable to, like, World War I era, right? And I know about 100 years ago, there's like 7.7 billion humans on the planet right now, but if you go back about just 100 years, it was around just 1 billion. You know, our population has kind of exploded quite a bit in the last century alone. But let's go with that. Let's say it takes place roughly akin to like 100 years before our current modern world that we live in is the basis of like Attack on Titan. Because, you know, the military weapons, the tanks, the trains they have, they got the Zeppelins and everything. So let's say the whole population of the world is like around 1 billion, okay? Eren wiped out 800 million humans. That's a whopper right there. That's a big hit. I don't know if that would count as like an extinction event, like because there's less humans in the gene pool or whatever now. It's kind of like when the meteor hit and like not all the dinosaurs got wiped out, but enough of them got wiped out that they couldn't really reproduce or they had major problems with genetics and later down the line. I think there was also a, I don't know, I think this happened a few 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, something like that. There was a massive volcanic eruption, like a super caldera erupted somewhere around the Philippines or something, and that greatly reduced the number of human beings that were on the planet, and it resulted in sort of like a genetic bottleneck. And I think like to this day, like our genetics are kind of shaped by that, where there weren't that many humans around for the gene pool or whatever. And so if that eruption never occurred, we might actually look like slightly different as humans now because of what that happened with that genetic bottlenecking. So I don't know if that would cause anything. You know, wiping out 80% of humanity, that's a lot, you know, okay? So I don't know how that would go there. But at any rate, the good ending of the chapter, after that, like, mobilization to arms and kind of like, you know, Isayama basically saying to the readers, it's just like, you know, peace is not forever, you know, Eren might be dead and everything like that, and the Titan power might have gone away, but they're still human beings, and there's still going to be war, and there's still going to be fighting, and there's still going to be death, and there's nothing you can do about that. You know, there's some more, you know, cheery moments, like you see Levi there reading the paper and everybody. There was a really nice scene when the Titan power was vanishing for the last time, when, like, Reiner and everybody turns back into humans. You know, Gabi's there, you know, Reiner's mom's there. They all go back into their human forms. And then, like, Levi sees all the deceased members of the scout regiment in the fog. He sees Erwin, he sees Hanji, and everybody's there, and he kind of, you know, he's all banged up himself. He's missing fingers, but he, like, gives one final salute to them, and they're all there. And then Sasha appears in the steam, and she's smiling. He's like, Sasha, bye! You know, so there's some nice moments with that, right, of course. And then there's the final scene where Mikasa is just next to Eren's grave. So Eren was buried, apparently, under the same tree that the story began at, the tree that he was, like, sleeping under in the first chapter, and Mikasa, like, hey, Eren, it's time to wake up, it's time to go back home. It's probably the same tree. That's where Eren's buried, and Mikasa's there, and then a bird comes down and kind of, like, tightens Mikasa's scarf, and it's kind of like, you know, thank you, Eren, for wrapping this scarf around me. Thank you for doing everything that you did. And she did not throw away the scarf, as, like, in the last chapter it was implied, like, you know, Mikasa, after I die, just throw away the scarf, you don't need it anymore. But no, she keeps the scarf, and then the bird flies away, and then that's the good ending of Attack on Titan, or that's the best you're going to get, alright? With Eren being decapitated, and the war still kind of ongoing, or it's kind of uneasy to see where the world is going, but that's kind of the happy ending. And then we get the bonus pages, okay? And so there's no dialogue in these bonus pages, but what we do get to see is a little bit of a time skip into the future. In fact, multiple time skips into the future through the panels, okay? So you have Mikasa originally next to Eren's grave, like right after the battle's over, and the bird, you know, tightens the scarf. Then we flash forward a little bit into the future, where Mikasa's an older woman. She has her husband with her. We assume by the back, we don't see his face, but by his back, we assume it's Jean. So take that what you will. It might not be, but from the hair and everything, it looks like it was Jean, okay? As well as they have a child together now, like Mikasa's holding a baby. So they're like going to visit Eren's grave at an older point at a later point in their life. And meanwhile, you see the background of what used to be Shiganshina, what used to be, you know, the walls and everything, beginning to get built up, resembling more of like the 1920s in our world, you know, the kind of buildings and the cars, like the Model Ts and everything driving by and all that kind of stuff, right? Then we flash forward a little bit more into the future where we see Mikasa as an old woman, and she like lays one final rose on Eren's grave, and then we see her, you know, like it's just in panels, we don't see her face, but we see her like in a coffin with the scarf still around her, like she was buried with the scarf, and then so Mikasa's dead, and so the tree, but now the town behind it is built up like a modern day city, like New York City or whatever, like skyscrapers and everything. There are ground-to-air missiles firing off at stealth bombers doing an air raid on this city. So the tree is still there, and every time, you know, we flash forward into the future, the tree is slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger the entire time. But this entire city is just, you know, we see it being built, and then we see it being built up into skyscrapers, and then we see it just being, you know, just completely getting blown to smithereens by, like, an air raid, okay? And missiles are firing off, sirens are going crazy. There's some kind of, like, world war going on in the background, right? And then we flash forward into the future again, and we see that the tree is still there on the outskirts of the city. The tree is now huge, but the city is now bombed to shit. It's completely just, like, decimated, you know. And then in the rubble, we see a child who may or may not be a descendant of Mikasa. I don't think it's Mikasa's own child, because this is like I said, like easily 100 years, maybe multiple centuries into the future at this point. But we see a child with a dog kind of wandering through the rubble. Maybe it's a distant descendant of Mikasa. And then the child stumbles upon the tree, and the angle it's depicted is the exact same way it was depicted in Ymir's backstory, where Ymir was in the woods and came across, like, the god tree or whatever, Yggdrasil, whatever you want to call it, the giant tree that had, like, a cave in it, and then, you know, Ymir wandered into the tree, fell into the well, and then, like, the centipede thing latched onto her, and she became the first Titan. And so this child with a dog that's, like, wandering through the Mad Max-esque, you know, bombed out, you know, Armageddon landscape, comes across this giant tree with the cavern, and the last scene of the final chapter is just the child, like, looking at the tree. How about that? How about the kid is just like, I'm wondering what's going on with this tree, and then the dog is like, let's go back home, and then the kid is just like, oh, okay, Sparky, let's go, and just leaves. And just like, good, don't go near the tree, you know, just stay away from the tree, all right? So that's sort of, though, the bad ending, because that straight up shows what happened, you know? It was kind of ambiguous with the first ending, like, okay, yeah, Paradis is getting mobilized, they're getting an army together in case they have to fight, but who knows? Maybe they might not have to, or maybe they might maintain their peace. But with this edition of the new pages, it's very, very abundantly clear. Paradise, you know, is not possible. You know, peace is not eternal. Peace lasted for probably a few decades. Eventually, there was some kind of world war with modern military equipment like stealth bombers and ICBMs and shit. And, you know, they just completely destroyed the world. And now it's just the survivors, you know, trying to eke out an existence. And then, you know, the child sees the tree, implying that, yes, this child is going to go into the tree and then become the new founding Titan. And then I guess this all starts all over again. With the world being bombed into smithereens, it'll rebuild kind of similar to like a medieval kind of structure all over again. So, you know, it is kind of a Titan time loop. It's not the same kind of time loop I was thinking it was going to be, like a literal time loop where you go back in time to like the medieval, like the Dark Ages or whatever, and you start over from scratch. And then when you get to modern society, it's whoop, loops right back around again. But it is kind of like that, where it's like society got built up and advancing, and they had planes and boats and all that stuff. And apparently because of this world war, I guess they had, by the time the world war happened, like electricity, they probably had the internet and everything. All of that is just and then starts all over again from scratch. And if that kid really does become the new founding Titan, then it'll probably follow in a similar kind of pattern where the world will start, you know, huddling around the Titan power as like the greatest superpower in the world, and then technology will begin to prosper once again, and then it'll get back to that point, and then it'll get wiped out again, and then it just keeps going on and on and on. That's, I guess, the most depressed way you could look at it. Like, that's the most pessimistic view. I guess the most optimistic view about this other ending is, like I said, the kid doesn't even go inside of the tree. He leaves, helps to rebuild society, and then, you know, at least there's no Titan powers anymore, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it. I mean, like, it's the ending, like, I kind of expected to happen. Like, I didn't think there was going to be a happy ending to this. I thought it was going to be kind of pessimistic. Like, yeah, you stopped Eren, but peace isn't forever, and there's going to be war, and there it is. And there was, and that's basically what Isayama drew, okay? So, yeah, that's the ending of Attack on Titan. Will there be spin-offs, or a sequel series, or a prequel series? Well, I think there's plenty of that already. There was, like, the light novel series and everything like that, like, before The Fall and all that stuff came out. So, if you want more Attack on Titan, there you go. I did see something on Facebook, and I have no idea if this is accurate or not, so do not take my word for it. Take it with a massive grain of salt. But I did see that maybe the anime adaptation is going to do something different. Now, like I said, I don't know if that's confirmed or it's just some random post I saw with no basis to it, but I'm just saying, like, will the anime do something different? Will they keep the ending and the serialization of the magazine? Will they add this ending with the war? Or will they do something completely different? I have no idea. I guess we'll just wait to see how that follows. But, yeah, that was the end of Attack on Titan. If I had to pick which ending I liked more, I would probably say the new ending. Just because I think with the message that was kind of being said through Attack on Titan, like the lack of peace and stuff, like that could never maintain, that at least follows through, you know, and it kind of follows through with the original ending too. It's just more ambiguous. I'm the kind of guy that doesn't really like open endings. I'm the kind of guy that, like, no, just tell me what happens. Just tell me what happened. Okay, the world got bombed to shit and then everything's back to original. Okay, fine, whatever. At least you told me what happened, right? So, yeah, that's me personally, but if you're a fan of more open endings, then the first ending, just assume that was the true ending there. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking. This will be Barry, signing out. It was a great series. I really enjoyed it. It's crazy. I mean, it's been out since, I think, 2009, but I didn't know about Attack on Titan until 2013 when the anime came out. Like a lot of people, that's when I first got exposed to the series. But I really enjoyed it. I'll be looking forward to the second part of Season 4 and see if they're going to do anything different with the ending. But let me know. Let me know what your favorite part about Isayama's Attack on Titan was below. And, yeah, you guys have a good day. Signing out.